It is the black hour before dawn, long before any light, and you are already awake because you have barely slept, and you will not sleep properly again for a very long time. You are kneeling on cold stone at the top of the world. Beneath your bare knees is the Great Pyramid, the Templo Mayor, rising in stepped tiers above a city built on a lake, and around you in the dark the fires burn, low and red, fires that must never, ever be allowed to go out. The air is thick and sweet with the smoke of copal incense, resin burning in clay braziers, and your skin is blackened head to foot with soot, and your hair, uncut for as long as you have served here, hangs long and matted and stiff past your shoulders. Somewhere below, a conch trumpet sounds, low and mournful, out across the still water and the dark causeways, and a drum answers it, and it is time. Your stomach is a hollow ache because you have been fasting again, and in your hand is a spine, a long sharp thorn broken from a maguey plant, and you know what it is for, and your part of the night has come. Look out for a moment over the city you serve, because there has never been anything else in the world quite like it. This is Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Mexica, built out on an island in the middle of a great shallow lake, laced with canals, linked to the shore by long straight causeways that run out across the water like spokes. In the dark you can see the faint glow of 100,000 hearths, a city bigger than almost any in Europe at this same hour, and at its very heart the sacred precinct, and at the heart of that, rising above everything, this pyramid under your knees, the Templo Mayor, crowned by two shrines, side by side, twin temples at the top. One belongs to Huitzilopochtli, the god of the sun and of war, the god who led your people here. The other belongs to Tlaloc, the ancient god of rain and of the growing things, the water that keeps a city on a lake alive. Sun and rain, war and harvest, the two forces a people must keep fed if they are to live at all, and their house is the place where you kneel. You have seen this place your whole life, or you think you have. The Aztecs, human sacrifice, blood on the temple steps, hearts held up to the sun, the most bloodthirsty people who ever lived, or so the story goes. And here you are, inside it, a priest of Tenochtitlan around the year 1500, 2 decades before any Spanish sail appears on the horizon, kneeling in the smoke at the top of the Great Pyramid, a maguey spine in your hand, about to do to yourself what you always imagined these people did only to others. And I am here to tell you, before this night goes any further, that you would not last a week. Not one. And almost everything you think you know about the man you have just become, about what he believed and why, and what the job actually cost him, is so much stranger and so much heavier and so much more human than the horror story ever let on. So keep still, hold the spine, and let me walk you through the hardest week of your life. My name's Marcus, and I should introduce myself, because I am the sort of man who has genuinely tried to keep a fire burning all night long just to understand what it does to a person. And the answer is, it does a lot, and none of it is good. And my wife found me asleep in a lawn chair at 4 in the morning and has never fully let it go. I used to teach history to teenagers who mostly wanted to be somewhere else. And when the textbook failed me, which was constantly, I took up the strangest hobby a grown man can have, which is going out and actually living the past, the cold, the hunger, the sleeplessness, the endless repeated ritual, all of it on purpose, to feel from the inside what a page can never tell you. And of all the worlds I have crawled into, this one is the one people get most wrong, and the one that changed my mind the hardest. Because the Aztec priest, the Calmecac, is handed to us as a villain, a monster in feathers on a bloody pyramid. And the truth, when you actually climb inside his life, is not a monster at all. It is a man being slowly ground down by fasting, and sleeplessness and self-inflicted pain, and a responsibility so enormous, so cosmic, that I honestly do not know how any human being carried it. And you, with your full stomach, your 8 hours of sleep, your quiet certainty that you would never believe anything so wild, you would have broken under it before the week was out. Let me prove it. First, we have to kill the fantasy because you smuggled one in with you whether you meant to or not. You have the picture in your head, the priest as executioner, the gleeful killer at the top of the steps, living high on power and terror, feared and fed and fat on the fear of others. That is the image, and it is almost exactly backwards, because the life of an Aztec priest was not a life of power and feasting. It was, by deliberate design, a life of hardship, of relentless fasting so that hunger was your constant companion, of broken sleep and midnight vigils, rising in the dark to pray and to watch while the city slept, of self-inflicted pain, given daily by your own hand to your own body, of endless sweeping and cleaning and ritual purity, and chanting the same sacred words until your voice cracked. The priesthood was not the reward at the top of Aztec society. It was one of the most punishing jobs in it. You did not put on the soot and the long hair to be feared. You put it on to suffer, on everyone else's behalf. Hold on to that because it is the whole story. So let's start with the honest question. Who were you before you knelt in that smoke? Who actually became one of these priests? For the most part, if you were training at the very top, you were a son of the nobility. The Aztec, or more properly the Mexica, world had schools, and the strictest of them was the Calmecac, the priest school, and it took in the sons of nobles, and sometimes promising others, and it did not go easy on them. If you were a commoner's son, you more likely went to the other school, the Tenochtitlan, the house of youth, which trained warriors and citizens. But the Calmecac, your school, was something else. It was severe. It was cold and hard and hungry. The boys there were woken in the night, set to sweep and to fetch, made to fast, taught to draw their own blood, drilled in the sacred songs and the reading of the sky and the keeping of the count of days. You were not being raised to be comfortable. You were being raised to be an offering. From boyhood, the Calmecac was breaking you down and building you back up into a person who could give and give and give again out of his own body without flinching. And there is one more thing the Calmecac did to you before you ever climbed this pyramid that you carry on your body right now. It marked you, the soot that blackens your skin from head to foot, the copal smoke you live inside, the long hair left uncut and unwashed until it hangs matted and stiff. These are not neglect and they are not costume. They are the uniform of a man set apart, given over, no longer quite belonging to ordinary life. An ordinary person washes and eats and sleeps and cuts his hair and lives. You do not. You have been marked as someone who has stepped out of the comfortable human world and into the service of the gods, and everyone who looks at you can see it at a glance. You are, in a sense, already half given away. So no, you did not become a priest to rule. You became a priest, most likely, because you were born to it and handed to a school that would spend years teaching you how to endure. That is the man you are this week. And now let me show you his days, because the days are where you'd break first. Start with the fire. On this temple and across this city, there are sacred fires that must be kept alive. They cannot go out. If they go out, it is a catastrophe, an omen of the worst kind, a tear in the fabric of things. So through the freezing night on the top of a pyramid, in the wind coming off the lake, someone has to feed those fires and watch them and never let them die. That someone tonight is you. You will not sleep through the night. Nobody in your order sleeps through the night. You take the vigils in turns, rising in the cold and the dark, again and again, to tend the flames and to pray and to sound the hours. Sleep, real sleep, the deep unbroken sleep you take for granted, is simply not part of this life. Then the fasting. Not a skipped meal, not a diet. Real, prolonged, ritual fasting, sometimes for many days at a stretch, sometimes bound to particular festivals and particular gods, hunger deliberately carried as a form of devotion and self-denial. You are cold, and you are exhausted from the broken nights, and on top of that you are hungry, deeply hungry, for long stretches, on purpose. And you are expected to work and pray and stay pure and keep the count in that state. Then the sweeping. It sounds almost funny next to the rest, but it was constant and it mattered. The temples had to be kept ritually clean, swept and tended, purity maintained with obsessive care. And that work fell to the priests and the students, day after day in the dark and the cold, a humble, endless chore laid on top of the hunger and the sleeplessness. Then the sound. At set hours, day and night, the conch trumpet must be blown and the drums must be beaten, marking the divisions of the day, calling the hours, sending that low, mournful note out over the lake and the causeways so the whole city knows the rhythm of the sacred day is being kept. That, too, is your job. Rising at the right hour in the cold to make the sound that holds the day together. And then, underneath all of it, the count. The Mexica kept not one calendar but two, running at the same time, and the priests were the keepers of both. There was the Tonopouhuali, the sacred round of 260 days, a cycle of signs and numbers that governed destiny. The count you consulted to know whether a day was fortunate or dangerous, whether a child born on it was blessed or doomed, when a thing should be begun or must never be begun. And there was the Ziupohuali, the solar year of 365 days, the round of the great festivals. And these two wheels turned against each other, meshing and unmeshing, and the priests had to hold the whole vast machine in their heads and their books, and read it and advise on it, and never lose the count. You were the timekeeper of the cosmos. Get the reading wrong, and a family might name a child under a ruinous sign, or a rite might fall on the wrong day. The weight of the calendar was on you, and then the omens. You watch the sky. You read the signs. Comets, eclipses, strange births, the flight of birds, the shape of dreams. The priests were the ones who told the city what the gods were saying and whether disaster was coming and what must be done to hold it off. You did not just keep the time. You were expected to read the will of the universe in the dark and to be right. Now put all of that together and feel the shape of a single day. Cold, broken sleep, a hollow, fasting stomach, hours of sweeping and chanting, the conch at the set hours, the endless count of two calendars, the watching of the sky for signs of ruin, and through all of it one more thing, the thing at the center, the thing you have been holding in your hand since the black hour before dawn, your own blood. This is the part I most want you to understand, and to understand without flinching and without cheap horror, because it is the true daily heart of the priest's life, and it is done not to anyone else but to himself. It was called by us auto-sacrifice, self-bloodletting. The priest drew blood from his own body again and again and offered it. He pierced his own earlobes. He pierced his tongue. He drew blood from his arms, his legs, his own flesh, using the sharp spines of the maguey, the agave plant, and blades of obsidian, that black volcanic glass. This was not a rare and dreadful punishment. This was routine. This was devotion. This was the daily, ordinary work of being a priest, offering your own blood as the most personal gift you could give over and over, as a normal part of your service. I am not going to dwell on the physical detail, because it is not the point and it does not need dwelling on. The point is the meaning. The point is that these men, the ones we cast as bloodthirsty monsters delighting in the pain of others, spent their lives inflicting pain methodically on themselves. The soot on your skin, the long uncut matted hair, the perpetual smell of copal smoke, the hunger, the sleeplessness, and the daily wounding of your own body, all of it was one thing. It was a life given away, piece by piece, day by day, out of your own person. And to understand why anyone would live like that on purpose, we have to talk about the belief. We have to talk about why. And yes, we have to talk about the other sacrifice too, the one you came here already thinking about, the human sacrifice, because I am not going to pretend it away. It was real. It existed. It was a central institution of the Mexica state and its religion, carried out on a scale that genuinely shocked even the people of that age. And it is not my job to make it comfortable or to explain it into nothing, but I am going to handle it with restraint, and I am going to keep the camera, so to speak, turned away from the act itself, because what matters here, what actually explains this entire world, is not the gore. It is never the gore. It is the belief underneath it. It is the terrifying, total, coherent idea that made ordinary, intelligent human beings certain that this was not cruelty at all, but duty. That it was, in their eyes, the most solemn and necessary thing a person could do. And to feel the real weight of that, and the real terror of it, you have to stop looking at the blood and start looking at the sky. So here is the turn. Here is the thing that flips this entire story inside out, the thing that took me years to actually feel rather than just read. To us, from the outside, the Aztec world looks like bloodthirsty savagery, a culture in love with death. But that is not how it looked from the inside. From the inside, this was a cosmology of debt, of obligation, of a universe running on a loan that had to be repaid. Follow the logic, because it is airtight once you accept the first step. In the Mexica understanding, the world we live in was not the first world. It was the latest in a series, and every previous one had ended in catastrophe. This world, this sun, the fifth sun, existed only because the gods themselves had paid for it. In the sacred story, at the dark beginning, the gods gathered and one of them had to throw himself into a fire to become the sun, to make it rise. And even then the sun would not move. It hung there dead in the sky, until the gods gave more, until they too offered themselves, their own blood, their own lives, to set it moving. The sun rose and the world lived because the gods sacrificed themselves first. Do you see what that does? It means the whole of existence, the sun crossing the sky, the rain falling, the crops growing, your children's future, all of it, was bought with the self-sacrifice of the gods. And a gift like that creates a debt, an enormous, permanent, ongoing debt. The gods gave their blood to make the world go. And so human beings owe, in return, a debt of blood to keep it going. The sun does not simply move on its own. It must be fed. It must be nourished day after day, or it will stop and the world will end, as 4 worlds ended before it. And the currency, the only currency that can repay a debt of blood, is blood. And it is not only the sun. Remember the 2 shrines at the top of your pyramid, the 2 gods you serve. Huitzilopochtli, the sun and the war god, must be fed so that the sun keeps crossing the sky. But beside him stands Tlaloc, the rain god, and he too must be honored, must be given his due, or the rain does not come, and the maize does not grow, and a great city built on a lake in a high, dry valley simply starves. So the debt is not one debt but many, woven through everything, the sun, the rain, the seasons, the harvest, the turning of the very calendars you keep. The whole living world in this understanding is held up by obligation, and the priest is the one who pays on behalf of all. Now, suddenly, kneel back down on that cold stone with the maguey spine in your hand, and feel how completely different it is. Your own blood, drawn from your own body in the dark before dawn, is not self-harm, and it is not madness. It is your payment. It is your daily installment on the single most important debt in existence, the debt that keeps the sun rising and the world from ending. Every night you rise and tend the fire that must not go out. Every hour you sound the conch that keeps the sacred day. Every drop of your own blood you offer is you, personally, holding up your corner of the sky. You are not a monster at the top of the pyramid. You are a man who believes with total sincerity that if he and his brothers stop paying, the sun will die and everyone will die with it. The whole world rests on you keeping up the payments. And that unbearable weight is what human sacrifice grew out of too. Not sadism, not a love of killing, but the same logic, taken to its most extreme and most terrible conclusion, that the greatest debt required the greatest payment, and that the ongoing survival of the entire universe depended on it being made. I am not asking you to accept it. I am not asking you to forgive it. I am asking you to see it as they saw it, because only then do you understand the man you have become. He was not enjoying himself. He was terrified. He was carrying on his own soot-blackened shoulders what he sincerely believed was the survival of the world. That is not power. That is the heaviest job a human being has ever been handed. Now I can feel some of you getting ready to doubt me. And good, you should, because this stuff gets mangled constantly in both directions, either into cartoon savagery or into a rosy fairy tale. And I would rather you trust the careful true version than a punchy false one. So let me tell you where the anchor is. If you want a serious guide to the inside of this world, to the texture and the meaning of Mexica religion, rather than a lurid list of horrors, look to the historian Inga Clendenin and her book Aztecs, an interpretation which does more than almost anything I know to help you feel this cosmology from the inside. The scholar David Carrasco is another name worth having, especially on the religion and the meaning of the great city. These are the people who spent their lives on this, and they are careful, and they are humane, and they take the Mexica seriously as thinking human beings, which is the whole trick of understanding any people at all. And let me keep the promise I make every single time, because getting it right matters to me more than a good story. The details of this world are reconstructed from difficult and incomplete sources, a lot of it written down after the Spanish conquest, some of it by the conquerors, some of it by the Mexica themselves under Spanish eyes, and scholars argue hard and honestly about the scale of things and the exact meaning of this right or that. So hold the fine points loosely, but the load-bearing beams, the fasting and the sleeplessness, the sacred fires, the 2 calendars, the priests drawing their own blood with maguey spines and obsidian, the copal and the soot and the long hair, and above all the cosmology of debt, the sun that must be fed, the world that will end if the payment stops. Those are the beams I would trust. Those are the things that make the man make sense. So let's be honest about where you specifically would break this week. And notice how little of it is the dramatic part you feared. It starts with the body. The broken sleep, night after night, rising in the cold to tend a fire that cannot go out. The hunger, real and prolonged, carried on purpose through days of work. You who have never truly been hungry, never truly been robbed of sleep for days on end, would be a wreck inside 72 hours, foggy and shaking and desperate, long before you failed at anything sacred. Then the pain, given daily by your own hand to your own body, as a normal expected part of the day. Then the sheer relentless discipline of it, the sweeping, the chanting, the count that cannot be lost, the hours that cannot be missed, the purity that cannot be broken. And then over all of it the weight, the belief which you would have to actually hold that if you falter, if the fire dies, if the count is lost, if the debt goes unpaid, the sun stops and the world ends. Imagine carrying that, not as a story, as your literal responsibility every hour of every day. You would not last a week. And I mean it precisely and not as an insult, not because you are weak, but because you are modern. You have been shaped, every hour of your life, by comfort, by full stomachs and soft beds, and the deep, unexamined certainty that the sun will rise tomorrow no matter what you do, that the world does not depend on you at all. And this life was built out of the exact opposite of every one of those things, out of hunger and sleeplessness and self-given pain, and a responsibility so total it would crush you flat. You have knelt in the cold and the smoke before dawn, tended a fire that must not die, sounded the conch out over the Black Lake, gone hungry into a day of sweeping and chanting and reading the turning of two great wheels of time, watched the sky for the ruin of the world, and offered from your own body, with a spine of maguey, your small daily payment on the debt that holds the sun in the sky. And that's day one. You're already dead. All right, not literally, not on the first day most likely, but the version of you that knelt down at the top of that pyramid, certain that these people were simply savages, certain that you would never believe anything so strange. That version is already gone, dissolved somewhere between the fasting and the fire and the terrible, coherent logic of the debt. And now, you would have to do the whole thing again tomorrow, and the day after, holding up your corner of the sky. And here is where I turn all of it around onto you, because I did not kneel you down in that smoke just to make you grateful for your soft bed, though you should be tonight deeply. Whenever I sit with this world, the thing that stays with me is not the pyramid, and not even the blood. It is the debt, the idea that the whole of existence is a loan, that someone paid for the world you wake up in, and that the payments never stop, and that somebody somewhere has to be the one who makes them in the cold, in the dark, out of their own body, while everyone else sleeps. The Mexica put a name and a face and a temple on that idea and made it the center of their whole civilization. But strip away the pyramid, and the idea itself is not so foreign as you would like it to be. Because here is the uncomfortable mirror I want to hold up to you, on your side of 500 years and a comfortable bed. Every society, yours included, hands someone the job of paying an invisible debt so that everyone else can sleep. Every society has its things that must never stop, its fires that cannot go out, and its people out of sight, keeping them burning through the night. So ask yourself honestly, what have you been taught to believe the world will end without? What is the thing your whole life quietly rests on, the payment you assume is always being made, the fire you have never once had to tend because someone else always has? And the harder question, who is it, right now out of sight in the cold, paying that debt so that you can sleep, so that your sun comes up in the morning as if by itself? Because it never comes up by itself. It never once did. Someone is always kneeling in the dark. So those are my questions, and I do read the comments, so tell me honestly 2 things. First, now that you know what the job actually was, the hunger and the sleeplessness and the daily wounding and the crushing belief that the survival of the world was on your shoulders, could you have done it? Not the villain from the movie. This one, the exhausted, frightened, faithful man holding up his corner of the sky. And second, the mirror one, the one I actually can't stop thinking about. What is the invisible debt your own life rests on? And who is out there paying it for you? Tell me below. And be kind to each other down there, because we are all, every one of us, kept alive by someone we never see. I'll be off to explain to my nephew Cody why I have started, and I quote B, worryingly, keeping a candle burning on the kitchen windowsill and getting strange about it. It is research. It is definitely research. And if kneeling you down in that smoke for half an hour made you look at your soft bed and your full stomach and your quiet, unpaid-for sunrise a little differently, and if you want me to drop you into another world where you also, let's be honest, would not last, then subscribe and come back, because I have always got somewhere harder to take you. My name's Marcus. Mind the fire. And be grateful tonight to whoever is out there in the dark, keeping your sun coming up.